The LCS coaching staff of the split results have come out for spring split, and there's already public outcry. So in a second attempt to make a video on this, figured I might as well talk about it. I originally had a whole video planned for 3 o'clock whenever the results came out. The problem was I forgot who I put as my second seed, and I was wrong in remembering. And thank God I actually deleted the video and didn't post it, because it now actually provides me more context for this video and a more solid foundation for what I was thinking originally, because the person that I said last night was a good example of recency bias, which some people have been accusing this vote of. Starting with number 1, Cloud9. People are going to say, oh, they were the best team in spring. Why should they be up there whenever they won last split as well? Even though I personally had them at the top of my list, there were not many others that did. You look at the LCS broadcast and many of the other names in the community, people had FlyQuest as like clear number 1 coming into the split. And yet Cloud9 is still sitting at the top. So do you not coaching in that case for being still at the top and arguably rising to the top in a world where everybody else just kind of faltered, or at least didn't live up to the expectations that some people had for their rosters? Absolutely not. That'd be like saying that Butch Harmon or Hank Haney can't be judged for their second, third, and fourth years of coaching Tiger Woods just because he did everything in his first year. That's a really dumb statement to have. Some people will say that this is results-based. Sure, to a certain extent, but that's kind of the whole point. You need results to back coach of the split. And more importantly, like, the defining factor for me was that Cloud9 pulled the trigger on a mid-lane roster swap that, quite frankly, they could have just passed on. They could have done the inverse, which is FlyQuest, and stick to an original promise, which was keeping Diplex in the roster. And sure, they might have finished where they were, but we were starting to see the cracks in the foundation there. And I mean, I'm not even going to assume anyways. I just think it was a ballsy move to put in M&S, who, in my opinion, was the best mid laner of the split, like past the second half of it. So it's uncontested in my opinion. That takes guts. That takes a lot of talent from management and from coaching staff to make sure that he blends in seamlessly, the drafts are working around them. And yes, players have input on that, but coaching staff has a lot to do with it. At least from the outside looking in, because the general opinion of this is, how do we know what's going on with coaching when I'm in New York and they're in LA and I have no communication with them? The answer, I don't freaking know, but I'm supposed to vote for this. I'm not going to abstain my vote. Otherwise, why would I even get chosen to vote in the first place? They just pick somebody else who's actually going to give them a vote. If you truly want this to be a purist award, then you would technically ask only the coaches and players. But even then, they only have experience with their coaching and not the other teams, other than what they've heard. So technically, like, this whole category in general is tough. So the criticisms, you can levy them on anybody, but it is what it is. My second and third were CLG and 100 Thieves, and they kind of go hand in hand with a philosophy that I personally have that a lot of people are going to assume is recency bias. No, it's not recency bias in just, oh, they won most recently, they automatically get it. It's the philosophy that you should be building throughout the split, especially with younger players, or in this case with CLG's roster, with players that still have room to grow in a league that got tougher for them. The fact that they were able to ramp up at the end, most especially 100 Thieves after making a coaching change, the reason why I didn't put them number 2 is because they only had 9 games with this coaching staff. And yes, it was a band-aid fix that they put on to do this, but again, that's hindsight. We were voting on this right after the last week of regular season, so you have to remove what happened in playoffs from your mind. Golden Guardians was on a pretty significant, actually the most substantial slump in the LCS from where they were at the beginning of the split, which in my sign is bad coaching. You should be ramping up, not slumping going into playoffs. EG, it's COVID. And I mean, same thing, like you can't really say anything about them. I just don't think it's kind of null and void. And for every other team, what, you're going to put an under 500 team for coaching of the split? Unless there was a team that we all expected to go like 0-18 and didn't, then sure. But there's not a single roster that I'm looking at here like, oh, TSM finished what, 7th? And most people had them 8th? Okay, like there's no real argument for or against it. People will argue for FlyQuest, sure. But in my opinion, you had the best players in the league. That should have been clear first. And that didn't happen. Plus, I do dock FlyQuest for making the decision to stick with Ayla whenever he came in halfway through the split and arguably looking worse with him. I think that does show on coaching staff that they weren't able to get Ayla to have that same ramp up effect as the split went on. He more or less stayed the same, which wasn't bad. It was obviously good enough for second, but in a world where Winsome was looking pretty damn good, that's reflective of coaching in my opinion. So yeah, I'm pretty solid on my order of C9, CLG, 100 Thieves. It took me taking another day and stepping back to put myself back in those shoes, because otherwise I would have put Golden Guardians at second. But when you go back to the end of the regular season, no, it makes sense why they shouldn't be on there. They finished 500 after looking good for the first like 2/3 of the split, and you fall off at the end. Nope. So yeah, that's it. Shorter video, just wanted to put this out there. It was longer yesterday, but alas, here we are. You do have to ramp up throughout the split. That's the sign of a good coaching staff. End of story. That's my thoughts. If you disagree with me, come on the podcast tonight. It's open call line for anybody. So come voice your opinion or put it down in the comments, and drop a like and subscribe while you're at it. Adios.